Welcome to New Year special episode at the Coffee Conversation Show powered by the Emerging India Forum TIF and a tech partner, Prime Infotech Solution. Theme is future proofing the human mind leadership, AI, and lifelong learning. In a time where businesses are racing to adopt AI, the real challenge lies not in technology but in how humans lead, adapt, and think. In this episode, we sit down with Yang Yen Thaw, a true polymath whose work spans law, M&A, AI, digital transformation, education, and organizational leadership. With decades of cross border experience and a deep commitment to ethical interdisciplinary thinking, Yang brings a refreshing perspective on how leaders can future proof organizations without losing their human core. This conversation explores frameworks, failures, foresight, and the mindset needed to thrive in an age of constant change. And we also uncover Yang as a person. So, welcome, Yang, to today's special episode.
Thank you. Yang is my surname. You can also call me YT, which is what most Singaporeans know me as.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, let me explain you Yang YT. There will be three rounds: professional journey, personal journey, and a surprise rapid fire round where you're in the hot seat and here's your inspiration: niche marketing. So let's begin the first round. Friend of mine, Amir Gurani, host at Coffee and Legal Tech event at Prime Infotech Solution, author of 15 books. So my first question to you, Yang, YT. Your career spans law, technology, education, and consulting. What prompted you to embrace such an interdisciplinary path early on? How has the journey been till date, and what are the key defining moments you had?
Uh, I did have soul searching a few months ago, which where I mentally charted my journey. I have always been very fond of technology. I'm no spring chicken, but when I started off, computer science was basically the buzzword, and it was transitioning from manual typewriters into computers in offices. Uh, However, uh, our family friends comprised of many lawyers, and the lawyers suggested that I do take up this profession, and that's how I stepped into it several decades ago. This fondness for technology again resurrected itself in 2015 when I embarked on my journey of learning artificial intelligence. So it emerged from repeated exposure to problems that cannot be solved within a single discipline. As most lawyers would know, that they are exposed to a very different kind of sectors and technologies and industries. And at that point of time, the advice that is given by lawyers and the work that is structured around that advice is extremely siloed. So there is a requirement and necessity for interdisciplinary thinking and action towards that. So my redefining moments, I would say, are not successes, but breakdowns and failures, and that's where you learn the most, because nothing teaches you better than failure. So each of those instances, as it happens, they were forced to widen your perspective rather than deeper specialization.
Awesome. So let's build the conversation, Yang. You speak a lot about adaptive management. What does adaptability truly look like in boardroom today?
Many people mistake adaptability for speed. You know, your GTMs and all your prototypes. But that's adaptability in their terms, which is speed. But adaptive is the capacity and the ability to redefine yourself at the crucial moments. It is an ability where you review and revise your own decisions without defensiveness. And the capacity and ability to stand by the decision that you take. Now, most of the people, when you talk about management, especially senior management, they take the decisions. You've heard the sentence quite oft repeated, which says data-driven decisions, which is the most dangerous aspect when it comes to running large organizations. Because data does not dictate, it's the humans that dictate. You rely upon data, as a tool or as a source, but you cannot delegate or outsource your decision from it. So, in terms of adaptive management, so long as you can allow for course correction without any reputational panic, ability to distinguish between reversible and irreversible decisions. So, when decisions are taken at senior management level, they have to ask themselves, is this decision reversible? If they come to the answer that it's irreversible, that's a decision that must not be taken, even if it promises profits or near-term gains. So many boards move fast, but very few boards adapt very well.
Wow. So, Yang, how do you help leaders shift from fear of disruption to confidence in transformation?
Repeat that.
How do you help leaders shift from fear of disruption to confidence in transformation journey?
I asked you to repeat it not because I didn't hear you, because I want your
I
audience
know,
to
I
hear you,
know.
right? So the irony of that question is when you talk about transformation, people want to rush, first to the post. Why is that organization or why is this law firm using that technology? Why aren't we using it? Are we losing the race? This fear kicks in. How do I help them shift? I am the brakes of their race car. I slow them down. Because I'm quite fond of repeating this to my clients and my students. Adopt the 1SB2SF. What is 1SB2SF? It's not a complicated framework. It means one step back, two steps forward. When you drive a car, it's the brakes that make you go faster. And your car is not always traveling in a straight line. You're not on a US highway, right? Your cars have twists and turns, bends, unforeseen, black swans, so many things. When do you apply the brakes? How do you apply the brakes? Is when you catapult out of the curve when you're racing your car. That makes you go faster. You know the term. Races, Formula races are not won on the track. It's won on the pit stop and the bends. And the curves, the dangerous curves, while very alluring and very, attractive. But they are the dangers. That's where you slow down. So when it comes to transformation, there's always a fear of loss of control, for one. And what really changes. And change is not defined by something which is, very transient and very temporary. Change is defined in organizations as one action having a ripple effect on the other. I mean, a bit like your chaos theory, the butterfly flapping its wings in Shanghai creates a snowstorm in New York. That's what change is all about, and that's what management has to understand. That's when you understand that, you move from fear of disruption to confidence.
So, Yang, your frameworks like Quest SC and design thinking focus on critical thinking. Why is thinking itself becoming a leadership skill?
I had an epiphany of sorts in August of 2025, which is a few months back, right? The epiphany was the future of education is not going to be answering questions. If you take education around the world, or from primary education, secondary or high school as you call it in India, it's always about asking questions and you have to give answers as students. But the direction is people learn to crack exams. They don't learn to crack education. They just go back 20 years of question papers hoping some of them will come and they answer it. The goalpost is actually getting the certificate, getting a graduation. The goalpost is not about educating yourself. Today, your answers are omnipresent, they are omniscient. You have something called generative AI. People derive answers from that. So the future of education is not in answering questions, but it's in questioning answers. Now, how do you question answers? It's always there. Data is everywhere, right? The information, not just data. Data is raw. Information is when you make sense of that data. That's what I tell my data analytics friends, right? If the data is already there, the answers are already there, generative AI can give you better answers than your lecturers and professors, then where does the student stand? right? Where do uh, 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 people understand what thinking is really about? How do you critically think? Now, sometimes when we go into the real market, when you ask them to define critical thinking, they will come out with, Wiley's critical thinking, or, some author's critical thinking. And then you have research papers with 25 to 2500 citations. But I wanted something which was really portable. So Quests, I actually wrote it as C in a circle because I wanted to copyright it some time ago. But I've dropped that because I want people to adopt it freely. So anyone who understands it or wants to use it is free to use it. So it's just out there. Quite similar to how a Singaporean invented the thumb drive and gave it out to the market. There's no patent over it. That's why it remains very cheap. So Quest stands for question, understand, evolve, solve, tool, test, and then start. So this is every step of the way. Now, let me just give you a very live example so that your audience can relate to this. Amir wants to know, critically think about what is White here, what is Yang saying, right? So first his question, why do I even need him on the show? For that, you assess your background. Does it align with your organization? Does it align with your thinking? Does it align with the philosophy of interviewing and reaching a wider audience who may benefit? Then you begin to understand. You question your own assumptions. Am I assuming this about him? I've read something on paper about him. Now he might look like an idiot, or he might look like a genius, or an escapee from a mental hospital, right? We don't know. But you begin to make your assumptions. And then that is your understand part. Then you evolve. Evolve is you speak to somebody else. Hey, I got this really curious creature, right? Who's probably from some weird predator versus alien movies, right? And do you think it makes sense to have him into our interview? That is your evolution. When you start talking to people, then you begin to solve. Then you have arguments where you take every perspective. Because if you are talking only about yourself, you end up like a horse with blinkers on, right? And then you move on to solve. You say, okay, this is my format. These are the questions I'm going to ask him because it's relevant to me. I drive the conversation. And then you tool. You may come up with a checklist. You may even be reading out from a question. I don't know. You always sound like a person who thinks on your feet and asks the questions. But the tool is your prototype. And finally, you start. You apply the whole thing. So it's a very portable, very easy. I've even applied it for major both conversational level discussions as well as senior management who start questioning their premises. The design thinking is actually another framework which stands for DESIGN. Again, I try to make it portable. It stands for D stands for define your problem, and then you empathize. There are many of these models in the world like Google Sprint, IDEO, and various others, but they start off with empathy. But what are you empathizing with? Nothing, right? So define, empathize, sketch, that is your broad plan. I stands for innovation, then you generate, and then you normalize. So design thinking is essential. So critical thinking is for individuals. Design thinking is critical thinking for organizations. So these were the thinking models that I'd introduced. But primarily what's more important is the information is not important. Your judgment is. How does judgment occur? You will hear me using the word judgment many times. Why judgment? Because judgment is applying your thinking. Your leaders are flooded with dashboards, models, forecasts, frameworks, but they interpret what deserves attention when. So thinking becomes a skill. And then the leaders will choose what they should not act on and what assumptions must be tested before that action. So moving forward, you cannot just use the terrible twins, which is your Control C, Control V. You copy your answer from ChatGPT, Perplexity, DeepSeek, Gemini, Nano Banana, or whatever it is, and just paste it. Your thinking is what separates you. I just want to, I know I've spoken a lot on this particular question, I'm sorry about it, but there's this particular thought that always comes to my mind when you're using generative AI, right? And you're just outsourcing thinking. You're outsourcing thinking, and that's the danger part of it. It's oft said, there's no, it would be very apocryphal for me to mention who's the one who said it, but they say AI is not going to take away your job, but the person who uses AI is going to take away your job. Both are incorrect. It's the person who thinks who will survive, regardless whether it's AI or any other technology that comes in the future.
So, Yang, having advised business across continents What cultural differences most impact digital transformation success?
Uh, I think leadership attitudes. There are very different kind of leaders around the world. Some. I mean, leadership has many theories by itself, right? Some of them they function on authority. I say so. Some function on a more collaborative function, whether it's the servant leader or the servant leader or whatever you want to call it. Then you have the transformational leader who looks at improving the individual so that the organization benefits. But I believe that attitudes towards authority and error that defines your culture within your organization, and every organization develops its own culture. Okay, so hierarchy may discourage questioning flawed decisions, and a lot of people say, "Hey, the boss said, so I just do," because ultimately the decision rests with the boss, right? That is a very wrong attitude from bottom up. Sometimes your speed overrides reflection. No, you've got to get it out fast. Deadlines, whether it's artificially created, in complex change managements, we talk about whether your action is being reflected across the organization, how you manage to get buy-in. You cannot just pass on. How do you take responsibility for your actions? So successful transformation cultures, they should allow for respectful challenge upward. You should encourage, because that's where the frontliners, the pavement pounders encounter real world problems. You cannot sit in an ivory tower. Error should be a learning rather than treated as a failure.
Wow, beautiful. So, Young, what role do managed services play in enabling sustainable digital intelligence for organizations?
Well, I have actually done a fair bit of work for one of the largest managed services company in India. They've got operations in UK, US, Middle East, and the Far East. So I can really speak with some authority on this, having seen both the senior management of the managed services company as well as the clients, who are essentially, they could be Fortune 500 companies, they are SMEs with upwards of $200 million or more in revenues. Sometimes what happens is managed services create distance between experimentation and core operations. Many managed services companies will just say, okay, we will take over this manual labor from you. Some of them try to advance by learning, not even learning, that's the wrong term to use, by just implementing or deploying AI solutions without realizing what AI solutions can do. Sometimes what happens is there is a blame game between managed services and the outsourcer, right? And then what happens is the decision gets lost in this quagmire of actions that are to be taken. And that is where the problem lies. Who is taking responsibility and judgment? The outsourcing company may say that, hey, I'm paying you for it. You're supposed to give me this. The managed services company says, you run your own company. I can't take your decisions for you. That who's the one who suffers? It's the company, not the managed services company. It's your own company. So accountability is a huge aspect. And I always ask them, buy time. I tell the clients, buy time for governance and capability measures for them to measure before you can just, outsource managed services.
Wow.
It's the same for shared services as well, which is internal between the organizations. Yeah.
Beautiful. So, thank you for leading to my next question. Many organizations rush into AI adoption. From experience, what foundational thinking is often missing at the leadership level?
Judgment and decision making. How do you assign accountability to the human factor? I find a lot of data analysts coming up with, dashboards. They do your descriptive statistics. They will run regressions, and they will say, hey, this has to be done because this is what is going to benefit our organizations. Talking about data analytics, what do? You look at historical data, right? And then you say, at this particular point of time, at this particular range, we have to order this for the inventory and keep it, running. And then your AI will say it'll do your pattern identification, it'll do your pattern recognition, it'll do your trend lines, it'll talk about There are things that should be done, and then what happens at that particular point of time? You have outsourced decision making. To whom? To a machine. Now, how ridiculous does that sound? And then you rely upon the machine because you say data doesn't lie, and then you say, hey, this is exactly the decision that we should have taken. Now, here's my big question. When I talk to leaders of organizations, can you tell me at what role or whose role the responsibility will drop? What you know as the buck stops here, right? Where does the buck stop? You will find suddenly that there's no one to take responsibility for it. You will find people throwing everybody else under the bus. So where is your decision making? What is your decision integrity? And who is the individual, or which is the role that will accept that accountability and responsibility when things fail? You have to embrace it. That's when leadership becomes confident. And that's what I do. I clarify decisions before it becomes irreversible. And the irreversibility is basically the 4 impacts on finance, on operations, on legal or compliance, and on reputation. These are the 4. And they are the most important things in organizations.
So, Yang, in your view, how should ethics be embedded into AI strategy, not as a compliance, but as a culture?
Let me throw the question back at you. What do you understand by ethics?
It is you answer it.
Try.
No.
Because you run organizations. You've got several verticals.
So I would prefer you please continue the conversation because it will deviate from the Coffee Conversation Show format.
Okay, so let me answer that.
That can be taken up in an informal conversation.
The fair point. So ethics is in law, right? You talk about justice, equity, and good conscience, and that's a fair milestone to reach. Is it rendering justice? Okay. Is it equity, which means you're talking about the equalness, not equality, equalness of what your decision is going to be rendered. Okay. And is it your good conscience? I like to believe that most humans are good at heart. But I've also been targeted fairly often in my life to know that not everybody is good at heart. So you have to set what is known as guardrails. Now, when you talk about all justice, equity, and good conscience, are you setting guardrails or are you setting restrictions? Now, this is not a question that's easily answered. This is what the top management has to decide. The ethics that govern my organization. Is it merely profits? Is it socialism? Is it merely capitalism? Is it only bottom line? Or do I deliver something that leaves a good mark as my legacy? So, ethics would normally appear whenever there are trade-offs. It doesn't appear on its own, right? It doesn't tell everyone, hey, if you see someone suffering on the road, help them, volunteer something, It doesn't work that way. Essentially, you've got to ensure that what your organization does, it's not individual anymore. Every organization develops its own sense of ethics. For example, Microsoft was always enterprise-driven. All their products are enterprise-driven. Okay? If they treat their employees well, are they an ethical organization? As compared to, I only want to suck out as much money from other corporations as possible. That's why I go on a licensing model. I don't do on a sale model. Is it ethical? Big question. Google always approaches its problems not from an organizational point of view, but they want to benefit the individual. But then I'm sucking out the data from you, your personal data. Is that ethical? So there are trade-offs. And then ethics emerges. It is not when you just make a policy. If your ethical considerations surface only because there's an audit or some approvals required, they're just cosmetic. They are not really, creating value to the firm. So when leaders ask who bears harm, who takes responsibility, accountability, who benefits asymmetrically, now we are talking about equity, right? Who benefits asymmetrically, who has no voice, that's when your ethics become operational. And that is going to the nub of the problem, and not just having ethics for ethics' sake, like having corporate governance for corporate governance sake.
So let's go maybe down the lane, Yang. What's been the most memorable transformation you saw in law firm, first part, then in a corporate company with your interventions?
Ah, okay. I have run my own law firm for 12 years, and I made a lot of mistakes. I'm happy to share those mistakes to those people who are running law firms. Unfortunately, the world is ruthless, and it's going to start moving people like pawns. You may be a pawn today, you may be the queen tomorrow. You may be the queen tomorrow, you get knocked off the board, and you're not even a pawn. The harsh truth is that conscience doesn't play a role. You have two candidates, one is better than the other, you can only retain one. Where's the equity in that? A good leader will find out what the other candidate is and create a role for them. I used to walk around saying that, my law firm is great because I've never ever fired an individual. They've only left me for better options. Now it sounds very good, morally, and it's very self-flattering, right? But then it shows failures in management because you did not know how to manage those people well enough to extract the best of them, right? To identify what makes them tick. So that was a big eye-opener for me. But of course, my law firm ran for 12 years, which is not no small feat by itself. And when it comes to managing partners and senior partners in law firms, right? At the same time, they cannot take the other extreme and say that, look, I'm so great because I keep firing people who are non-performers. Then you have failed in your definition of performance. Then you have failed in what we just now spoke as ethics. When it comes to corporate, my defining moment and now this is something that I'm doing some research on. There is this popular saying that for the benefit of the greater good. Is that really so? What about how do you define greater good? Is it by number? Is it by population? Hey, I got a population of 1.8 billion people. Okay, so long as it serves 1.5 billion, we are good. Let's go ahead. Let's trample around the remaining 0.3 billion. But do you realize that the world is being run by 1%ers? So shouldn't you knock them off from the first place? So there is a paradox in that. There's a contradiction in terms. In Singapore, we have this saying, we leave no one behind. And I personally don't like that sentence. Because the implication, it's a military term, when you go at war and one of your, comrades is injured, we don't leave them behind, we bring them back. But when you apply it in a social context, right, it means I leave no one behind, at the same time I don't let you go forward. We all stay behind. So what is better served? What is better served is we take everyone forward. It's the framing. You've got to reframe your problems and questions. When you reframe it, your organization follows. And when your organization is doing the right thing by accepting that it's my decision even if I fail, you're sending out the right signal and everyone automatically becomes ethical within that organization. And this I've been trying to impart to my clients, the senior management and boards who I normally advise, saying that, look, I mean, not in those direct terms, but if I were to give in very raw terms, don't be arrogant, right? Be a little more empathetic and accept that there is still things to learn. Yeah.
Wow. So, Yang, you believe in continuous learning. What made you believe in this and how has it helped in your journey so far?
Some people, in the Singapore context, we have a saying, die must work, work till die. So, die, you must keep working, and you must keep working till you die, right? Because as you're well aware, Singapore is a super expensive place to live in, right? It's not very easy. So when it comes, for me, I believe that you stop learning you stop learning only when you're dead. Like the Twisted Sister song, you only sleep when you're dead, right? So for me, I think if you ask me what my superpower is, I would say it's curiosity. I'm extremely curious about everything that's around me. And I want to know how it works. I can consider myself a huge expert in taking things apart. I may not be an expert in putting it back. I'm talking about my young age lah. You know, I would take apart radios to see what makes it tick, whether there was a human being inside that small machine or some miniature dwarfs. Sorry, I should use that term, but you know, vertically different people within the radio, you know, who are speaking from there. So that curiosity, I think, serves me very well, and I think it'll continue to serve me till I'm dead because I'm always going to be learning. Now, the question is, the bigger question when you ask about lifelong learning, right? What's the use? You'd be surprised the moment you embark on a learning journey, whether it is to do volunteerism, that's social work, whether you're saying I want to help as a private equity lawyer, I want to help I want to be a good firm manager, I want to help my general partners, right? And I want to make sure that they all make money. Whether you say I'm going to pick up knitting or gardening, all those will have a inflection point. It'll have a confluence in your life where suddenly you realize that your knitting skills, you know, the hook and twirl methods and all that, is actually weaving something which is different ideas, and then you see the pattern emerge. So you can analogize a lot of things. That depends upon how open your mind is, and that's exactly what thinking is meant to do for you. You know, your generative AI may be so super focused, but can you engage in divergent thinking to expand the ideas it's given, and then convergent thinking to bring all the things that you've learned to satisfy a problem? And that satisfaction is very gratifying. So I think everybody is continuously learning.
Yes.
You know, in a way, you've heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? The Dunning-Kruger effect is actually a cognitive bias. When you have 1% of knowledge, you start thinking you're an expert. And that's where you stop, because you say, I know. The I know is such a bad thing to do. I mean, Socrates said, the only thing I know is I don't know, right? The moment you start deep diving, you will find that is from your 1% knowledge, when you start going towards expertise, you immediately start saying, the only thing I know is I don't know. And then your confidence level, you'll see it dropping. So it describes a graph like this, you know, like a mu. You know, it shoots up and then it goes down. And you never reach 100%. You never. Because that intellectual curiosity grounds your humility.
Yeah, very true. So, Yang, you're a lecturer of law. You teach law at London School of Business and Finance. How do you prepare today's Gen Z lawyer to be prepared for the new age laws and their business development? My first part. And what made you go to London School of Business and Finance to teach law?
Okay, let me answer the second part first, because that's an easy answer. I am happy to go teaching law and management to anybody who wants me to go and teach, because I believe it shapes lives. Okay? So I don't pick and choose. I only deal with people. If the people aren't good, I don't want to work with you. Okay? So, yeah, I mean, I teach contract subjects even for Singapore Institute of Management. LLB is for Metropolitan Manchester University. London School of Business and Finance is diploma in law, you know, amongst these subjects. Have I answered the teaching bit on law? Yeah.
How do you prepare?
Okay. How do I prepare for teaching? It's
I mean, how do
interesting.
you prepare today's Gen Z lawyer?
So that's the second
for the-
part. Yeah, that's the first part. Okay. Now, what is the biggest fear? AI, right? When I talk about AI, I talk about three things. I call it MAD AI. What is MAD AI? Management of AI, application of AI, and deployment of AI. Now, you see, you're quite familiar with lawyers, I presume, and law firms, because you've interviewed a lot of them. When a law student leaves college and enters a law firm, they do what is called as grunt work, right? This grunt work is so repetitive. And let me give you a blanket statement. Anything that is repetitive will be replaced by AI tools and techniques and models. So what happens when your law student comes in? Now the job is no longer the law student. No research work, no drafting of templates, no reusing a template to draft contracts. and then your senior or your senior associate, whoever is your mentor within the law firm, has no time for you, but they have time to go and enjoy the ATN and Macallans with the clients, right? And then they just say, oh, this is not right, go back and do it. I mean, I come from a time where my draft was sent back 13 times to me saying change, and they never tell you what to change. But now the senior lawyers are having a problem with the drafts that can be churned out by your new lawyers, your junior lawyers. Your newest junior lawyers are coming out. So, but how do they come out with those great drafts? It relies in prompt engineering, right? You can't just say draft a sale purchase agreement of shares. You can't say draft a property purchase agreement, and then it comes up. So I always, when I'm teaching Gen AI, for me the greatest prompt is the last sentence. Do you have any questions to ask before you answer? You'd be surprised with the question. I mean, Gen AI is basically collective wisdom. It has taken a lot of people's ideas and distilled it into a few lines for you. It's great. It's beautiful. I don't deny it. I'm a chronic Gen AI user myself, right? I admit. But it all depends upon. You remember my earlier statement, my epiphany. The education of the past was to answer questions, but the education of the future is to question your answers. Now here, your Gen Z, your new lawyers have to learn A, the right questions to ask, B, to rightfully question the answers that are given to you. Now, from there, where do you go? From there, your execution skills is just temporary scaffolding, right? It's not really expected to create something for you, and your seniors will always find a problem. That's a given, okay? You got to learn to work within that system. You must question outputs, understand assumptions and limitations, and when not to rely upon those automated recommendations, like your Netflix recommendation engines. It's not always correct.
Yes.
Develop, and this, what happens is AI becomes your enabler because you're learning much faster, better. You are not going to go into tool mastery of Gen AI. You are going into cross-domain literacy, because when you choose a sentence that Gen AI gives you, then it branches out. You start questioning. Then you have context, you have background. Finally, the bottom line, your judgment. Your judgment becomes your invaluable experience. I want to leave one line with your Gen Z viewers and audiences. This is a line I always start off with in all my classes. Do you think you're wise? Amir, would you go out to the real world and say, hey, I'm a wise man, listen to me? Simple yes, no would suffice. I know it's a close-ended question. I don't like those. I like open-ended questions. But tell me, would you go around saying you're wise? Because it's your intelligence and your humility. Because you're intelligent, you will never say you're wise. If you're an idiot, you will say, I'm a very wise man. It's only an idiot who says that. But you should go out and say it. Why? Now here's the thing. Listen carefully. The universe comprises data. Awareness of data is knowledge. Application of that knowledge is intelligence. Your experience of your intelligence is your wisdom. Now, if your Gen Z lawyers are listening to this, data is all around them. Just because you get a degree from Oxbridge, which is Oxford and Cambridge, and then you get a master's from Harvard, which is Yale and Harvard, does not make you intelligent. It makes you knowledgeable. When you apply that knowledge, you are exhibiting your intelligence. And every minute of your life is a minute of your experience. If I've even derived a formula on this, wisdom is the function of the summation of the ratio of your knowledge over intelligence with experience as your multiplier.
Okay. So, Yang, you are an associate trainer at Singapore Institute of Management. What are your memories of interacting with today's students?
Not a fair question to ask. Because do you want it from Singapore context, from Brunei context, Indonesian context, or Indian context? Because students are very different all over the place. And I'll proceed to even explain each one of them. Indian students are very, very, and when I talk about students, I'm talking mostly about adult learners, not your primary, secondary. Okay, college students also accepted, right? The ones who are doing their bachelor's, master's, and PhDs, or doctoral level studies. Indian students are very inquisitive. They are not curious. They're very inquisitive. And they have no hesitation in asking questions once you prompt them. And when they start, they can't stop. They are runaway train. They got to learn to be more curious than inquisitive. Do not ask questions for question's sake. Singaporeans, I have a fear. Singapore has one of the best education systems in the world. All your PISA scores, your STEM subjects, we are fantastic. Because from 1965 onwards till date, we have managed to stretch our 5 fingers to the same length. Monkeys have learned to swim underwater, dolphins can climb trees. Okay, that is not your natural state, not your natural habitat either. But we did it, and we gave a very intelligent, hard-working workforce for plug and play. Basically MNCs. Now, it's still regarded as, a center, a hub for the spokes that expand to various countries around. So the Singaporean mindset is I call Singaporeans as soppers. Soppers stand for SOP operators. You don't give them SOP, they cannot operate anymore. They freeze like deer before headlights. But they're very efficient, and they're super, super detail oriented. The devil is in the details. We are all devils in that in Singapore. So they refrain from asking questions. They are more practical and pragmatic, as we like to say. How will this work? What will happen if I do this? They are not bothered about the philosophy of it or the outcome. They are only bothered that it should work well. It should work well. Okay. Now, so these are two examples from these two countries. You will find the Chinese students, they are very, very curious, but they never express themselves. They will apply it and they will burn themselves. They like doing it that way. And they're also good listeners, because that's how the culture has been with it. So, each culture brings with itself very different challenges, very interesting challenges. I love these challenges. Yeah, if my students love me, it's because I tell them, that when 10 of you come, you see one Laosi. Laosi is basically teacher in Mandarin, right? But when I see 10 of you, I see 10 Laosis. You're my 10 teachers, and I love learning from them.
Very true. Okay. So, Yang, in your journey, you have trained thousands of professionals. What mindset shift do you find? In your journey, you have trained thousands of professionals. What mindset shift do you find hardest, yet most necessary to teach?
Fear of opening their mouths. Almost universal thing that I find, a lot of people are very, very scared of challenging authority. Now, this is changing. But like I said, since I'm an adult educator, or some of my recent work in adult education, I've been trying to encourage my students to understand what change means within their organization, to challenge authority. Not challenge authority in terms of what's your position, are you senior, than me, or whatever it is, but to challenge decisions. You never attack a person, you attack a behavior. That's what it is, right? So I get them to escalate problems, and that's where I even assist them. So I actually accompany my students to explain to management, to escalate problems. So it comes to a certain level where the decision makers are confident of embracing failures, are confident of being accountable for any decision that's been taken within the firm. That is a challenge that I find. Don't accept things as they are. Our Gen Z is doing a better job. They have no problems calling a spade, and they have no respect for age. So I hope they're on the right track.
So my last question for our professional journey round, Yang. Looking ahead, what will distinguish organizations that truly future-proof themselves from those that merely digitize?
You've used my title. What I've been doing on LinkedIn this year is I'm just clarifying my role. I've been doing a lot of things, as if you would have reviewed. I do crazy stuff, from law to technology, AI. I mean, the range of subjects that I'm involved in are AI, data protection, digital transformation, cyber security, critical thinking, design thinking. Written a couple of books on business negotiations, a comprehensive compendium of common contract clauses is how it reads as one of the books that I've given, that I've written. So it's a very wide range, and now it's all being filtered down very clearly to what is called as transformative leadership and complex change advisory. So that's what defines me, and I also want to clarify. Transformative leadership is not transformational leadership. They are two different concepts. Transformational leadership is when the leader goes and tries to improve the organization, tries to create better employees to be more productive. They transform the employees and the organization. Transformative leadership talks about your surroundings. It's a bit like the comparison between the id, ego, and superego. Your id is what you're born with inherently, your ego is what you develop, your superego is how you relate to things around you. So transformative leadership is how does your company relate to things and circumstances around it. Transform yourself. There's a huge element of justice, equity, and justice and equity in transformative leadership, while embracing transformational leadership as well. Understand complex change, because deployment of tools and technology, don't expect it to only affect one department within your organization. So for example, if you have a chatbot, very crude example, you have a chatbot, AI bot, or whatever you want to call it on your website, which has got an API that is linked to your a generative AI, which can actually tunnel into the data existing and give you coherent, cohesive answers, right? But that's just your front facing. You think it is serving sales or pre-sales. But how does that affect HR? How does that affect procurement? How does that affect PR? How does that affect finance? All of these. An organization is not simple. We have problems coordinating between our fingers and our toes. An organization has to coordinate with all the people and their fingers and their toes. So, and then at that point of time, because there's so many daily decisions being taken, who is accountable for those decisions? Where is the human thinking that is coming in? Who can justify and defend on behalf of the company inside and outside? This is what will future-proof them. Introducing the human element. And if you do not understand what is the human element, sure, AI is going to take away your job. Like Elon Musk says, I have created a company which is substituting all of Microsoft Office products, and it is not run by any human beings. There you go.
So let's go to the next round and understand more about Yang as a person. Tell us about your family and your formative years.
Well, I'm grateful to my parents because I feel like this is an Oscar speech and a Grammy. I'm grateful to my parents, and I thank my father, I thank my mother, but they're a bit like dragon parents, where they dictate what you want to do. But that's our generation, right? My generation next to mine, I just let them take their own decisions from the age of 6. Sorry, I'm talking about my formative years, not my children's formative years. Yeah, so they did push you into this education. All said and done, one thing that I'm appreciative about education is the rigor. They force you to go through a certain rigor, and at the end of the day, you got to appreciate it. I have this crazy memory of remember things like surface tension, pH values, learning about things like Apollo 13, and then about gibberellin, why plants grow tall. Some plants grow tall because of gibberellin. I like to learn about deoxyribonucleic acids, those kind of things. Those kind of things just stick. That is what lent my curiosity. So that was my formative years, the extreme curiosity. I once gave a bath to a FM. Those days there was no FM, it's always shortwave. I gave a bath to a radio to clean it. My parents still laugh at me about it. I said, yeah, because I wanted to repair it. I had an engineering mindset is what I thought, I used to take apart things. So that was my formative years. Law taught me that life should not be as siloed as what the practice of law is, because law is very siloed. There may be a lot of people who disagree with me, but it's fact. They're trained in very siloed thinking. They are very narrow-minded. And if you think about, that's the corporate side. If you look at the litigation side, that is the antithesis or the whatever, antipathy or whatever it is, of how growth is. Because if you see cross-examination, right, every cross-examination is close-ended. I put it to you, are you wearing a polo t-shirt in white, or are you wearing a black t-shirt which I cannot see, therefore it is white? Yes or no? I immediately push you to answer that. You're not allowed to justify. Every cross-examining question is just close-ended. Because the moment you open a close-ended question, you are damaging yourself. You know, so that is why I call it siloed, and that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous because okay, I can quite safely say this: law of practice is no longer honorable. It's no longer an honorable profession. Okay, it's just another business, any other business. So yeah, that's been the formative part. What's the other part that you asked?
You you
I
have
answered.
done it. So
Okay,
let's
okay,
go to the next.
yeah.
So outside of work, what hobbies or interest helps you slow down and reset your mind?
When you can I not use the words hobbies and interests? So what slows down my mind and what helps me reset my mind? Silence. The most underrated thing on this of the human mind. The human mind is crazy. It never stays still. You're always thinking about something. Right now you're thinking, okay, half an hour after this joker stops speaking, I've got to go buy flowers for my wife or my partner. You know, the mind never stops. Even when you're sleeping, you're dreaming. Whether you're in alpha state or beta state, you're still dreaming. A lot of meditative techniques tell you to stop thinking. Easier said than done, right? So silence is one thing that really helps me to reset. I also am embarking on a journey to speak less and mean more. Not very easy, because there's so much of crap in your head. You know, everything is just dying to regurgitate itself. Uh, yeah, so silence is something that helps me reset. But on the other hand, I play Mobile Legends a fair bit. Yeah, because that is mindless doing. But then again, I get very frustrated because you can't always win. The algorithm always kills you. Yeah.
So are there any creative interests which you have developed lately?
The most creative is thinking. Uh, Trying to knit together or stitch together a fabric with all the things I've done in my life into a coherent whole that I can present in order to help corporations become more human. And the humans within corporations become even more human. That is a highly creative job. The second thing is I love doing things with my hands. Now life has become so easy because I can just go to e-commerce platforms. I made the small steam engine, this size exactly, the engine itself. Very satisfying. I made a sailing ship as well. So I love doing things with my hands. Yeah, yeah, I really enjoy. I
So
used to, sorry,
if your friends had to describe you in three words, what would they say?
what an asshole. Sorry.
Okay. So which is a book or movie which has left a lasting impact on you?
In terms of book, I would say author rather than book. Uh, Socrates. Of course, Socrates never wrote anything himself. His student Plato was the one who transcribed his teaching. Socrates was actually an uneducated lout, apparently. Uh, and Plato was Aristotle's guru. So all the thoughts of Socrates which have been penned down by Plato, I think, has had a very influential aspect because of two very simple books. One is called The History of Philosophy, and one is called Sophie's Choice. Sophie's World, sorry, not Sophie's Choice, which I read during my law school days. So these things have carried itself on. The one book I regret having read is Ayn Rand, all her books. Uh, it's very powerfully written, and it champions capitalism to its extreme. But it's a load of crock. It's a load of rubbish. Yeah, so I regret having read those books. Movies, Star Wars. Star Wars, the entire series, even the worst 7, 8, 9. But what it really I loved about it is the creativity. I think one of the greatest things that has ever been invented, or two of the greatest things that's ever been invented by imagination, is the lightsaber. It's an impossibility. Light cannot be stopped at one end, the 3 feet from where your thing is. It's infinite. It travels on and on, right? And then it's got the capacity to heat down space-resistant doors by just shoving your lightsaber in, but nothing happens to you with that much of heat. But I find the sword a very elegant weapon. And the lightsaber is matching the past with the future. That was one great thing. The second great thing is the Predator. I really like that character. So it has nothing to do with any fancy stuff or talking about books like Margin Call. Movies like Margin Call. Uh, yeah, yeah. So well, but I've actually, to be honest, I have not touched a paperback nearly in decades. Yes, I have read a lot of ebooks, but I think over the past 5 years or 10 years, I have not picked up a book. I find movies easier because it's more controllable. I just use these two letters called FF. You know, yeah.
Wow. So let me act from my side.
Please.
This cartoon series, He-Man, when he uses his power, with the
I
power of
have the power!
and
Skeletor!
in your earlier conversation about education, these three idiots, काबिल बनो, कामयाबी अपने आप आ जाएगी.
From that movie, is it?
Yeah, three idiots. Amir
Ah.
Khan says.
Yeah. Amir Khan, Madhavan, and Saif Ali Khan, is it?
No, no, no,
No.
no.
Who's the third guy? Oh, no, third guy is.
Third guy, I'm not, no,
He's not a very
neglecting his
popular
name.
guy. He's a
Yeah, he's not a
Mumbai. Yeah,
popular
yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and the principal was Bowman Inari.
yeah. What are you talking about?
Let's go on to the next part. Okay. Uh, since we have entered 2026, what are your goals for 2026, personally and professionally?
Uh, Let me tackle professionally first. Professionally is to continue to be curious. Uh, I will continue to learn things and to share whatever I've learned. Uh, you know, whether it's in terms of teaching, I'm very selective about teaching. Um, I've refused many times. It has to lead to something. It has to lead to its own tangible change at organizational enterprise level. That's where I'm at. Uh, Personally, in fact, I just was sharing with my son 2 or 3 days ago. I said, my meaning of life is very simple. It's just to do something meaningful that brings me happiness and satisfaction. That's it. Nothing too fancy or philosophical. Just do anything that's meaningful. The thing that you do should bring you happiness and satisfaction, which are not related stuff. Happiness is different, satisfaction is different. You know, very simple. I don't have lofty ideals and goals like I want to change the world. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. As you brought up the topic of your son, what message would you like to give to your son, your children, when they miss you, when they grow up and you are not there?
There's this very old line from this book called Gone with the Wind, Margaret Mitchell or whatever her name is, right? I have a daughter and I have a son, right? Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Because when I'm not here, it doesn't matter. You just go do your own thing. Don't miss me. Don't cry about me. Go lead your life. I've been here. I'm extremely grateful for their formative years and being there for it. I'm extremely proud of the way they have turned out. They are very successful failures in something, and they have been very failing successes in many things. Continue to do that. I have tried to share my words with them. I think I've done most of it because my philosophy is very simple. It's up to the age of 6, you're a caregiver, okay? Because your kids can do nothing on their own. From 6 to 13, you're a parent. When you teach them your values, when you give them what you can give them. Once they are past 13, which is actually an ideal teenage a milestone, if you will, you are no longer a parent, you are no longer a caregiver, you're a friend. And if you can develop that relationship, they will be friends for you for life. And then they will appreciate and they'll remember the good things. So I don't have to tell them, what they have to think. They're perfectly capable of thinking on their own. So that's what Gone with the Wind says. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Yeah. And you remember the Keanu Reeves interview as well, when he was asked, I don't know whether by Conan or whoever it was, what do you think about death? And Keanu Reeves says, very, very sensible statement. He says, I think when you die, the ones who remain shall miss you. You
Wow.
don't care. When you're dead, you're dead. That's it. It's a full stop.
Yes. So, two more reflective. What legacy would like to leave behind?
Again, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. You do what you do. When you talk about what legacy you leave behind, it indicates an ambition. It indicates a very selfish, greedy wish, that I want to be remembered like this. But who's going to remember you when you are dead? Can you remember yourself? I mean, please tell me that there is life after death, there's reincarnation, there's what Lord Krishna told Arjun, and there's Zoroastrian concepts, and your people who throw dead bodies on hills so that the vultures can pick and eat at them. If you're a Mumbaiker, you will know what I'm talking about, right? When you're dead, you're dead. That's it. You just do what you want and be selfish. Just do what brings you happiness and satisfaction, not at the cost of others. Not at the cost of others. Just do it for yourself. When you're gone, you're gone. I don't believe in legacies. Hey, I don't wish to buy Istana and give it to my children. It doesn't work that way.
Wow. The last one is googly one. Describe Yang YT in one line.
I can't do that really because I would be doing injustice to myself. But what you see is what you get. We sig. You know we sig,
Wow.
right?
So let's put you in the hot seat. The rapid fire round. Your go-to comfort food.
It changes. It changes because I'm a foodie. I'm a huge foodie. I'm driven a lot by memories. So at some times, my favorite go-to food is probably naan, butter chicken, and bara kebab at the side. But the naan is not your regular North Indian naan. It's more the Pakistani naan, which uses baking soda and stuff, which puffs up a fair bit. You get a lot of that in Calcutta in Pakistan, but not in India. And many times I really enjoy my bowl of wonton soup. I really need to have my soup noodles. I've lately developed, maybe it's age, I don't know, developed a liking for porridge. Uh, Whether it is the Chinese porridge or whether it's your khichdi or your pongal, I like all of them. Yeah.
Wow.
But
Beautiful.
my comfort food is eating something that's well made. Because I just give you a quick example. A few days ago, I was in Indonesia and I ordered the Angus Wagyu beef steak. I was very angry. Had it, and I prefer it medium rare. But I don't know whether the chef knew what he or she was doing. They rested it for too long. Angus Wagyu beef takes lesser time to rest rather than other beefs. Of course, I know this is a taboo conversation in India when I talk beef. Yeah, but that which is supposed to be my comfort food has now angered me. Then there was also this time where they had lobster, and I prefer the lobster thermidor, right? And especially lobster thermidor with butter garlic sauce. But when I told them, can you do it that way? They sloshed the whole thing with soy sauce and oyster sauce and all kinds of sauces and made it such a saucy lobster that made me want to throw up when I saw it. Yeah. So those are my discomfort food, but food cooked well is my comfort food.
Wow. Your favorite color?
Black and white.
Early mornings or reflective nights?
I'm a 3 a.m. person.
Wow. City energy or quiet retreats?
Both. Both.
Structure or creative chaos?
Creative chaos, without doubt. You know, the whole interview has just been about that.
Your dream travel place?
Ah, none. I'm a creature of comfort, though. If the place is comfortable, that's the creature comforts. I love it. I don't like roughing
Wow.
it out, hiking on my Timberlands, walking up mountains. Oh, so tiring. Yeah.
Wow. I would make you a tour guide. If someone wants to visit Singapore, what are the places to check in and food to have in Singapore?
Why only him? You're being very sexist, no?
Him, her.
Yeah, him. I would probably say go to the bar and drink. Okay. As a tour guide in Singapore, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the touristy places, like when people say go to the flower shrine in this place or whatever, whatever. For me, the ideal holiday, as you put it, is to live as the local, because their lifestyle is very different. So apart, the extreme is either you give me a fantastic room with a view which has got all the creature comforts, or I go sleep in the village, but at least the mattress has to be a bit thick. I can't sleep on the floor anymore, right? I like doing the other extreme. So I would probably take them, and of course, these days we no longer eat to live; we all live to eat. So I'd like, and Singapore is a melting pot of all kind of cuisines. You get everything, maybe not the best of everything, close to it, but you can get the best of everything as well. I mean, depending upon what your poison is. I would take them to all the local places, lah. You know how life is lived by a lower rung Singaporean. I would rather do that than go visit Singapore Zoo and Gardens by the Bay and what's that latest thing called Monsoon Rainforest or whatever it is. And you go do that on your own. I hate doing those stuff. Duck tours or whatever it is. Yeah.
Wow. Last one, tea or coffee to recharge?
I'm a coffee person, but I love tea as well. So every 3 cups of coffee I have, I need to have 2 cups of tea, and I love green tea, but I cannot have it simply because I don't know. It does something weird to my metabolism. I become very hungry after green tea. So I'm very scared of. But with food, yes. Yep, yep. You made my coffee go cold. Cheers to that.
Here's a gift. Which is autograph. So, this conversation with Yang YT reminds us that future isn't built by technology alone. It's shaped by how we think, how we learn, and how we lead. From interdisciplinary wisdom to deeply human insights, this episode goes beyond transformation buzzwords and into the heart of meaningful progress. Thank you, Yang, for sharing your journey, your reflections, and your relentless curiosity with us. And to our listeners out there, stay thoughtful, stay adaptable, and keep questioning the obvious. So, like that, there are 800 plus speakers who have shared their professional personal journeys. Subscribe to the Coffee Conversation Show on YouTube and implement those changes in your life with the Coffee Conversation Insights. And we meet with another speaker or a cup of coffee and brew the conversations. So, take care. Thank you.
Shout out to your Prashant Kataria, who introduced me to you indirectly and unknowingly. Yeah.